Hey now, welcome to Earth 1 Jess and Earth 2 Jess Talking Superman. I think that's the working title of the show. But today we're discussing Kurt Busiek's Superman. Do you want to show us? This is Jess. Jess, Earth 1 Jess, how are you?
I'm great, and this is, I think, the first time, even though there's no official name, you didn't stumble on the name, so well done.
Oh,
I'm proud of you. Usually it's like, or whatever we call it, we don't really have a name, which is also catchy in
I
its
just
own right.
nailed it. Yeah.
Nailed it.
Now, here's the thing. Working at a bit of a disadvantage. Excuse me. I couldn't get we worked off a list that Jessica found about Kurt Busiek, but I couldn't access any of the solo story. I had like a ton of books, and I'm including Last Son here because because
My one lonely book.
because Chris Kent shows up, is introduced in this book, but he shows up in these books, throughout these books. So
Yeah, we did the Last Son arc when we there was a John's arc that is like in the middle of this run, so
and
a bit odd.
it's not only in the middle, but excuse me, there he's throughout the whole, like almost the whole Busiek run. But in the Last Son, it's like his entire story, how he shows up, how he departs. And so my memory's not good enough, because I did collect this series in singles before I started collecting it in collected editions. So I don't remember how, if in regular continuity they have him go back. I guess it's not germane to this discussion. I don't know how they handle it in regular continuity, because he's got the red kryptonite bat watch that it throughout the whole thing, and so I don't know how he goes back to where he's from. I don't want to spoil it. But the other thing is, I couldn't access any of these. I couldn't access anything from my DC app. It kept saying like Superman 660, 661, 666, 712. I had already downloaded much earlier because it's my favorite Superman issue ever. It's an out of continuity Busiek.
Oh, is that
that's the crypto one?
Yeah, that was so cute. Yeah,
it's so sweet. But I'm at a disadvantage on some of these because I have DC Unlimited or whatever it's called, DC Ultra, and it kept saying it's not available. Did you have that problem at all? You must have not.
No, listen, this is going to be one heck of a show. Probably our best work yet, because Jess was having trouble finding the books. I read the books like, I think it was like 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, that we were going to do this show. So I crammed them all in the night before. I was like, oh, shoot, because it was 36-ish issues. That's not crazy. I was like, I can do this. So I set aside the day. I did take notes. I showed Jess. Will they make sense? My chicken scratch a month later? Probably not. We're going to find out. But no, I was able to locate them all. But then when you got a chance to read them after we had rescheduled, you texted me and was like, hey, it's missing these issues, because we pulled the list from, the interwebs. And I was like, oh, so I haven't read those yet, the few that you sent me. So who knows what we're going to talk about today, but I think it's going to be quality content. I can assure everyone.
But you had no problem getting those issues.
No, some of them I read as issues, but a lot of them I read as arcs, because in Ultra, of course, they have, like, for example, this one I owned physically already, but Up and Away, you can read as issues, like in the app, but also if you search for Up and Away, it'll pull up this whole trade. And I was able to do that for like most of them, except for like
Family
the Insect
3,
Queen.
2, 1 action, like that.
Yeah, I think Back in Action, certainly Camelot Falls, which I read out of order. I think I told you that. We're really struggling. I read part 2 before part 1. I don't know how it happened, but I got to the end and I was like, wait, what? How does the story keep going? Superman Family was like it was its own issue. 321 Action, yeah. The third Kryptonian, I think, was collected on there, but Insect Queen wasn't. And of course, the solo stories weren't. But yeah, a lot of them were like collected by Arc that I can remember.
Okay, so
testing my memory.
did you read the solo stories?
I read 660, 661, 666, and 712, and those were all Superman, not Action.
Yeah, I wonder why my app. I just downloaded just to see if it was still working. Excuse me. Ultra. It gave me all of current Wonder Woman and all of current Birds of Prey. Tom King and Kelly Thompson.
Hey, that's fun to read too.
but because I kept searching last night, I'm like, well, I do need to read these issues. And it just said they're not available. So
so weird.
I'm like, what is happening? So I guess we're gonna we'll have you talk about some that I haven't read, and you okay, thank you, Chris. Jess said it worked for her. It was 660, 661, and 666, but I ended up getting 666 in the back of Redemption, which was the Beast, Mark of the Beast or something. Wait, let's see here.
Yeah, it was 666 themed.
It was by Walt Simonson art. Yeah, wait. Yeah, 666. So I got what I'm looking for is 660 and 661 of Superman. And I couldn't, and I tried other excuse me. I tried some other stuff and it just would not give me those books. It said they weren't available.
Well, I have 4 lines when we get to that section. We can figure out which issues were which. It's just one line for each issue, so we'll figure it out. But yeah, it'll be chaotic. It'll be fun.
I have a message for Javier. Javier, he wouldn't listen to me. Okay, are you still here? I have to be cryptic, but if Javier, if you're here, listen. If you're here, I tried to stop him. He wouldn't listen to me. So we'll see if Javier's still here. But if you watch us later, you'll see.
What a tease! Either the world's gonna end, or
I'll explain to you afterwards. It's funny. Oh, here's the Comic Slayer. Oh, messing with us. Okay.
Well, we all know the truth, and
yeah, we do.
It's gonna be me. Love you too.
I don't think I was actually going to say it out loud, but we know it's me then. Okay.
No, we don't know that. That's not something that we know. Actually, one of the missing solo stories reveals the truth, and it's you wouldn't know because that's why the app was just trying to spare your feelings. They're like, no, Jess, you're such a hype man for us.
Kane is here. Nice to see Kane. AS. Rahul, always good to see you. Chris from Canada. Doc Elevator loves these Superman streams. Let's go. Right on.
We do too.
Always, Aria. If yesterday was Batter Day, is today Bun Day? Al Bunday. I don't know. CNSS 84. You need to shorten that. There's too many S's. CNSS. Okay, now do whatever you want. Munin is here. Chris is checking for me. James, good to see you. As always. And I think I saw Mary M here. Nice. Just had Mary M on the show last night along with the expectant couple. I just searched for 660 and you found them. Were you able to? I could find them, and I tried to, I touched them on the touchpad on my iPad, and it said it's not available for you. What the hell?
Well, Chris, read them and let them know who Kristen's favorite Jess is. No, just kidding. That happens to me though. Mine glitches sometimes, and I'll be like, "This is not available. Subscribe to Ultra," and I'm like, "I am," and then I hit refresh, and it lets me. So I'm not sure.
I restarted my iPad, and it. Okay, I'll try. Is refresh restart?
Sure. I close out of the app. I swipe up.
I'm
I'm
thinking
an
of
elder millennial. I don't know the terms. I swipe up, I close
elder
out, I
millennial.
open it again.
Oh, thanks, Mary.
She's okay. It's fine.
I clicked read and I could. That's disappointing. Hi, Jets and Jess. I found the 666 for Superman Ultra and can read them, but I'm on my PC. Okay, so this is a me problem. That makes it worse. But as long as I can download and read Wonder Woman and Birds of Prey, that's actually what I'm really interested in. Because you're going to tell me what I'm missing with those solo stories.
You're right. I got one line description of each of them, and it's awaiting when we get there.
I can't wait to hear all your notes because you said something about notes and I'm like, well, I didn't take notes. What is she talking about? So, but then I saw them. So some of these, so these are the books that I have, including Last Son.
Yeah. Do we want to like kind of do one-ish arc at a time?
Yeah, sure. So this is during the time, I think, of 52, after Superman's lost his powers in Infinite Crisis. And so he's Clark Kent for a long time.
Yeah, we kind of enter the story where he is depowered, and it's unknown really like what caused it, if he's ever going to get him back. Which was, I have to be honest, this is the only one I owned physically. Had I read it before? I don't remember if I did, but this was my favorite one of all of them. So I'm glad it's the one that I owned physically. I love sort of like character exploration when he is depowered.
Yeah.
Like you get to know like his motivations unclouded by like crazy circumstances. So I had a really good time with this one, and there was a lot of cute domestic scenes with Lois. Love that. And a lot of like Daily Planet content, which is really what I'm here for, the day to day.
Yeah, and do we so Luther and Toyman are messing around with this Kryptonian artifact, and they woke up the artifact and Clark gets his powers back. So to me that was cause and effect. Is that how you felt about it too? Like waking up the Kryptonian artifact somehow gave first of all, everything somehow Palpatine survived. So it's the same in this.
Yeah, basically. There's like this is jam packed with it was very episodic, like monster of the week throughout. Like each issue had a bunch of different villains. And so there's like the main arc of depowered Clark, and then there's also LexCorp at this point has essentially been turned over and failed. And so Lex is like underground experimenting. And so those two things are happening at once, but each issue pretty much has like a different villain, which was super fun. I had a good time with that format. But yeah, the way I understood him getting his powers back, etc., is pretty similar to yours.
They in Infinite Crisis, he and another Earth Superman ganged up on Superboy Prime, who had gone crazy, and they had to push him through a sun. And Superman, as we know him, is the only one that survived that without his powers. But yeah, I actually, now that you're saying that, this might be the one I enjoyed too. This is also the one I've read the most. I probably read this several times, and it's interesting and fun to see a depowered Clark and how the world got along without Superman. Lois's haircut is reasonably decent in this, and it goes towards incredible failure, towards the not to be sexist, but they try out some hairstyles on her that clearly no woman was advising them about, because there are some choices Lois makes in her haircuts that the artist, I might have been drunk. I don't know. It was, and for a long time, they were weird, but
well, like Gary Frank has never seen a baby. No, just kidding.
Or a normal mouth.
Yeah, great hair. Also, like, shout out to the fedora look that Clark was. We all go through phases. I think that was very humanizing. Different hair phases. This very tiny fedora on this giant man.
Yeah.
There were some choices in here, and I appreciated it.
This actually, I think this stuff, the Triangle era. I think this is after the Triangle era. This was in 2006. I feel like the Triangle era was more late 80s through the 1990s. So this is past the Triangle era, Rosie.
Mm.
I don't think that I think the Busiek collection, I think that this happened after the Triangle years, because this was in the 2000s, and that was something that kicked in. These kicked in afterwards. And I also found out, Marcelo told me the Busiek collection, the hardcover collection, is not going to be a deluxe.
Is this collecting his entire run? What is it meant to collect?
I think there's going to be 2 books, and book 1 will contain probably, I guess, the first few trades, and then they've already put out a Camelot Falls deluxe. Actually, let me go to the Super Snobs list and see what he says. I will not sacrifice, Infinite Crisis, blah blah blah. Action Comics 8. This is what book 1 will be: 837 through 843. Superman 650 through 658. Superman Man of Steel Annual 5. Superman Secret Identity 1 through 4. And World's Finest Comics 308 through 309. And it's just standard hardcover.
Such an odd, as evidenced by us not having an easy way to read this in a streamlined way. Like, that's still such an odd collection. If you were a huge fan of this run, that's frustrating.
Yeah, so it contains this. Well, it does contain. Okay. It is scattershot. Yeah, the whole thing. Let's see. Action 841 through 843. Okay, so it is some stuff that happened before this that I don't think we read.
Action 841, 843 is the back in action arc, right? That's the one you're holding up.
Yeah, 840, but yeah, 841 through 843. But the Busiek Busiek book collects 837 through 843. So 3 issues before this.
This one's 8. This one starts at 830. Action. Well, it starts with Superman 650 and then Action 837.
Oh, which one?
So this one? Yeah, so I think it's going to start here.
Okay, it's going to start here.
Yeah, but it is kind of scattershot after these first 2 arcs. This one's obviously up and away, and then back in action is the next arc here.
Right, because he gets his powers back, and people
spoiler.
People think he's a fraud. Is he real, or is he a fraud because there were 4 Supermen that showed up after he was dead, back during Death of Superman? Spoiler alert, Death of Superman. And this one only has, it's not all Busiek. It's just the first story, Back in Action, is Busiek. The others are Lane Wayne, Jerry Conway, and another by Lane Wayne, and they're fun stories, but they're like from the 80s, like solid Bronze Age stories.
Oh, that's interesting. That are in the physical collection?
Yeah. Oh. Like this kind of stuff.
Yeah, because Firestorm does make a cameo. Well, I guess we could move away from this one. All I'll say is, I love Toyman, as evidenced by my praising him all the time. And this is why. Like, look at this little operation table. Come on, people.
That's pretty funny.
I
That
just
is
love
very funny.
like he's real twisted. Yes, I wouldn't want to meet him in real life, but I think he's funny. There's also a villain I'd never encountered before. I think in this one, the puzzler lady who was just puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
I was like, I could see why you didn't last, but yeah, I had a good time. I would say actually, this is a fun like early read. I think in a Superman journey, just all on its own. Like I'd give it like a 4.25. I had a good time.
Yeah, you're right about it being the whole series is just constant monster fighting.
Yeah,
It's
but kind
nonstop,
of fun
except
ones.
yeah, except for the very beginning where Clark is in this is enjoying some semblance
Yeah.
of a life and
Trying out
um,
his fedora era, you know. It's like a midlife crisis, but like a depowered,
yeah,
situation.
and he's given a Green Lantern ring, which I thought was cool. That would have been cool to see Clark as or Superman as a Green Lantern, but
Yeah,
uh,
because the team is trying to yeah, I forgot about that. See, it's been a minute.
it's
Forgot about
okay.
that storyline. Yeah, the team is trying to he's kinda doing 2 things. Clark is also sort of working with I think that's the one where he's working a little bit with Supergirl as well to
He has
take up
the
the slack for him.
yeah,
So that was cool to see, and then, yeah, like, the Justice League is their skepticism is greater in this next the Back in Action arc, but, yeah, I forgot about Green Lantern trying to help him out and be like, "Well, you have a lot of willpower, so here's this ring, give it a go." That was
yeah.
fun.
He and Green Lantern and Hawk Girl show up to help him, uh, and that was cool. I like seeing Hawk Girl have some agency in this, and
Yeah.
that was fun. And um, because Clark is doing a bunch of reporting on Intergang, and I like that Intergang is the main villain besides Luther. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, here's the puzzler. She's a bunch of puzzle pieces.
I mean, it was, like, truly and then here she is when she gets put she gets put in the trash at the at the end,
Yeah, he
like
captures her by putting her over a garbage can.
but I kind of love that, like, I have such a good time, that's why I like some of those zanier, like, Silver Age stories, like, that's a
Hmm.
good time, I'm here for a good time, life's hard, you know?
Uh, I don't know if Kristen's still here. It's okay for this is a safe space for
Oh,
Superman fans.
of
Kristen's
course it is.
invaded it, but she's minding her p's and q's so far. But it's safe to admit you can like Superman here. The show is called something something Superman, so we discuss Superman all the time. And Kristen won't judge you because she's
No.
gonna be a mother, and mothers never judge.
Plus, she loves the Jesses, and they
Yeah.
love Superman, so there's a piece about it.
So yeah, I enjoyed this a lot. If we're on a sliding scale, I don't know, 4.8 out of
Oh, okay,
5. I
wow,
don't know.
yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's a good time. The art is also it consistently pretty solid throughout.
Yeah.
Um yeah, very little complaining. There's some cheesy dialogue, but that's just what you get, you know.
And you're
Yeah,
right.
it was a good time.
Toyman is great.
He's so funny. I and then Prankster appears in a lot of throughout this run. I think Busiek must really like him because I feel like he appeared a lot. And again, he's kind of annoying in real life. I would never want to be around that guy, but
Yeah.
he's kind of hilarious. Like it's sort of funny the stuff that he comes up with. So
Yeah, I love when Superman finally busts him and Prankster's got occurs later. Prankster's got his little helpers around him, these young women. One of them
oh
says
yes, yes.
I think one of them says something like, "Is my mom gonna find out?" after she gets busted by
Mhm.
Superman. Yeah, I think your mom is gonna find out. So what? I don't know what Prankster's been up to. Um, but I liked the villain or the alien that shows up in here, the auctioneer. I thought that was a good invention as far as a Superman villain goes, where a giant auction, giant race, a race of. I'm not explaining it right. You explain it.
with my terrible memory, I was like, auctioneer, let me see.
Oh, okay. Well,
But yeah, back in action. Well, there is an arc being set up with the auctioneer that's like
right.
going planet to planet. And I think in this one, we don't really know who hired them or like what their main agenda is. So there is that. But as you said, the other main, I think, plot here is just that like Superman's gotten his powers back and people are quite skeptical. And that includes members of the Justice League. So you have like Firestorm jumping in, like kind of questioning things. And then you also have the government questioning things as well. And there's tension that you see within the government. Some people, like when the giant robot spiders, that was terrifying, show up, they're like, hey, maybe we need this guy. And then others are like, we can't trust him, etc. So there's a lot of push and pull actually from everyone, including a very sad Perry White, because Clark was doing so great when he only had one job at the beginning of the other arc, and now he's suddenly very distracted. So there's
Yeah.
a little bit of tension there.
Kryptonite Kid, where are you? Like in Hawaii? That's what is that? 6, 7, 8 hours ago? Wait, it's 1:30, 5:30 in the morning. That's like 6 hours earlier. So you must be in Hawaii. Get up and smell the luau. What do you mean you're gonna watch us later? I like that we have a Hawaiian in this chat.
How did you like automatically know that though? I was like, what? How do you know? Immediately that's why.
I had a girlfriend in college that was from Hawaii.
And you just keep up with her time zone even now?
I had moved back here I had moved to here from California. And she actually, this is why she's the first and only girl that ever took my heart, froze it solid, and then shattered it on the ground.
Dang.
Yeah. So that's why I remember. She was also 2 years older than I was, and I was an immature sophomore. I should have figured out, yeah, she was going to graduate and move on and forget me. Oh, New Zealand. Oh, so it's 5:30 in the morning tomorrow.
Yeah, it's both places are kind of tropical, so it's all right, Jess. I think we're close enough.
So she like just left without a word to me, and I was always left wondering what the hell happened. And I was already living with Patty, and she called me out of the blue, this girl from Hawaii, and she called me at midnight because it was 6 o'clock her time. She had no idea.
She wasn't keeping up with your time zones because
she wasn't keeping up with my time zones. That's how I first found out. Oh, wow. Yeah, sure. And she was going to be in Washington. She wanted to meet me for a drink. She was already married and I was already living with Patty. And that's how we had a drink and nothing happened. And I never got the answer to my question. So blah, blah, blah. Jess's love story, life story, love story. She was the girl that bruised and battered me.
This really turned into like a John Green novel really quickly, like an exploration of adolescence and love. That's right. What Mary M said. Don't mess with Patty's man. That's right.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
But that also, this is kind of funny because Patty endured about a 3-year period of old girlfriends calling me up for closure.
Whoa.
Julie is the girl with the name from Hawaii. That wasn't closure. She had already closed. But I had like 3 more girls that I apparently had that needed closure on me to let me know they were doing fine and married and happy. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And so Patty is familiar with the midnight phone call from girls checking in on me saying, I'm better off without you. So I'm okay now.
That's intense. What were you doing? I don't know if I want to know why they needed closure. I'm going to be totally honest.
I was just a dumb kid.
That is really weird.
I was just a dumb kid. I didn't know any better.
Oh, look at this. Love these comments right here after Mary.
Which, this one?
Yeah, these next
two. Cycle.
This is the truth.
Well, I know what it feels like. I can promise you. So the auctioneer, I thought the auctioneer the whole storyline behind
Mhm.
they initially are tracking a ship full. The auctioneer captures things and bids them off, auctions them off to the highest bidder, and so they find a ship that's headed towards Earth, and that's how they discover Earth um and Superman, and that's the personification of the auctioneer. He's like,
I know his like Tony Stark facial hair was really serving. You know what I mean?
oh yeah.
It's like that mixed with the headpiece. It's definitely giving Tony Stark.
So and then oh, and so he actually I like this issue because Superman and all the world's superheroes and supervillains get captured and put in the auctioneer's gigunda ship, including one of my favorite Superman villains, Livewire. She's got such
Yeah,
an attitude. I like it.
which is fun.
I've always liked Livewire. Um, and I'm kind of sorry that I don't remember seeing her recently. She was more of a 90s, I feel, 2000s character.
Yeah.
So they're captured on his ship, on the auctioneer's ship, and they have to figure out how to get off. But the important thing is what the auctioneer alludes to.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that?
Yeah, so there's a tease at the end of a third Kryptonian, which will be a future arc. Obviously, Clark and Kara are the two he knows about. There's also, I can't remember in which issues, but there's some testing where Power Girl's not showing up as a Kryptonian on the same frequency because of her origin. So he's like, who is it? Same thing with Chris, who's around. He's going to ring a different frequency. Yeah, that the ending of this was really strong. There's that tease, and then the resolution was also a great little Superman theme because, the Justice League is skeptical of him this entire time. And the way he convinces them is he basically says, no, all of my hope and trust is in you, actually. And puts himself in a position of peril. And that's what convinces them, is that sort of like selflessness and that belief in others, which I thought was like it's a little bit of a flimsy arc, but I think it had a really strong ending, like some intrigue and a good theme. So I did like it overall.
Yeah, and it did give us the third Kryptonian component, which
Mhm.
let's see, that third that was after Camelot Falls. I had to go right into third Kryptonian because I didn't have the other solo stories, but I so you can talk about those. But and then Camelot Falls comes, um, but also I think it's important to read this ahead of time so you know who Chris is, because as I said,
Yeah.
Chris is interwoven throughout all of these books. He doesn't play a huge part, but he's there, and he just pops up in one of the issues,
Yeah.
and I'm like, wait, I know that. How did he? And then I remembered that he's in The Last Son, so I read The Last Son, and I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
you
you
need to do
reread it.
that.
Yeah, it's like Superman up and away, Superman back in action, and then I would read Last Son. And the solo stories kind of come between in the middle of Camelot Falls. So, but honestly, like in my opinion, you could go from Last Son to Camelot Falls parts 1 and 2, or do 2 first and then 1 if you want to be cool like me. And then you could really read honestly the solo stories, you could read them whenever, but yeah, after Camelot, that's the order I would go to get through Camelot Falls, is up and away, back in action, Last Son, and then Camelot Falls.
Okay.
um
Cycle approves of your Superman hoodie.
yeah, we got to be on theme.
Yeah, it's too hot here for me to wear a sweatshirt, and that's all I have of Superman.
We'll have to
Um,
work on this. We need like a Superman Hawaiian shirt. I am sure the print exists somewhere, and I think it would look great on you. I
that
would
is a
wear it.
good point.
I would wear it.
Yeah, I'll look up RSVLTS. Roosevelt's is where I got all my Boss Marvel shirts. Maybe I can find a cool Superman shirt
I gotta
there
have
too.
one. So
Yeah,
come August, we'll really be twinning, not just in name, but
nice.
also in wardrobe.
Yeah,
But yeah, back in action, I would give it like a 3 or a 3.25. It was fine for me. I liked the ending, but it isn't anything like you know, it's not going to rise to the top of the pile, and that's okay. It was pretty okay overall.
And the other thing is, are we going to rate the entire run as a
Yeah,
whole?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
What did you think of Back in Action? Where would you put it on like a 1 to 5 scale?
Well, because I like the auctioneer
Yeah.
introduction, I would probably give it a little bit higher rating. Also, because Live Wire's in it, and it requires Live Wire to work with Superman, which she hates, and I love that she hates it. And it drops the clue that there's a third Kryptonian. Okay, Lois's hair is still okay in this. I can't wait to show you this odd hairstyle that is almost heroin chic.
So many fashion opinions for a man without a Superman Hawaiian shirt. Just spewing around. Who are you to say?
I know women's hairstyles. Women have broken my heart, so I can say something about women's hairstyles, especially in comic books. It just stood out as very odd to me. But Camelot. Okay, wait. Is this where the bad hair starts? Camelot Falls.
Real quick too, with Booster Green's comment, trying to read Camelot Falls. We won't give major spoilers.
Yeah, this might be where the bad hair shows up. Okay, it is. Yeah, yeah. What is this hairstyle? It's like I don't even think Vampirella would wear it. It reminds me of Vampirella.
Wow.
Okay, come on. That's a choice, right?
Choices were made. Camelot was falling, you know? She's got bigger things to worry about.
Stanley, just relax. They're not old man shorts. They're shorts on an old man. So relax. So, okay, we get Prankster. And I think Camelot Falls just came out. Okay, yeah. Come on. Look at this hairstyle. What's happening there? I don't think I'm aware that we have to suspend our disbelief because they're up in the air flying, but no woman would actually wear that hairstyle. That's just, I can't, not even a Euro model on heroin or whatever. Yeah, if you're going for Euro model looks, then I just don't see it. It's not.
What Patty needs to do, April the 1st, 2025, is get that wig. Be like, hey, do you like my new hair? That's what Patty needs to do.
Yeah, here she is trying to seduce Clark, and I'm like, wow, that hair. Okay, sure. But and look, Lana's in it, and she's buttoned up. She's got CEO hair.
Big picture, just real quick. There's a lot of Lana content in this run, which I super loved. I really like Lana. And when we actually get to her like plot points, we can talk about sort of where she's at. But that was a surprise because this was my first time. I think this was my first time reading this run, with the exception maybe of this one. And that was a fun surprise for me because essentially she's running LexCorp. We already mentioned Lex is sort of like underground, so her story will come about in some future arcs. But that was cool to see her.
Okay, wait. That looks like a Chelsea cut. That's a hot ska punk look. That looks like a Lydia Dietz hairstyle. Okay, I don't know what either of those things mean. A Chelsea cut. Yeah, Stanley, keep up. That's supposed to be Lois.
It's Lois going through some things. In response to Clark's fedora era, she's like, hey, you embarrassed me.
Hey, the fedora, I kind of like that fedora.
It was so small, but shout out to Clark, who consistently throughout this run, and that's why I chose to wear this sweatshirt today, is constantly repping where he's from. At all times, he's like, oh, Metropolis University. Oh, Smallville High. Like, every single outfit he has, except for at work and in the sky, is some kind of like ID wear repping where he's from. And I love that. I love a person who's proud of where they're from.
Okay, it's Lydia Dietz is from Beetlejuice. It's her hairstyle in the movie.
That actually does. That's correct.
I wonder if Beetlejuice was way before this. Maybe that's where they pulled it from. They were like, Lydia
Well,
Deetz.
listen, at the beginning of Up, Up and Away, they are going to like a little movie screening, do you recall, of like a, a Superman flick?
Oh
And
yeah.
maybe she got really inspired and they went home and watched Beetlejuice, and it sort of she let it marinate and she was like, yeah, that's the look I want.
Okay, we can go with that.
Yeah, headcanon.
Uh, so Camelot Falls. What were your notes on this? I'm interested in what your notes on this because we get a visit from Arion, who is a like 15th century sorcerer who scries that Superman is going to be bringing about the end of civilization. And so the Camelot Falls part is he shows up and tells Superman he's got to stop trying to save humanity or he's going to be the cause of it. And we also go ahead.
The theme behind it is inevitable that Camelot, a really like progressive society that's reached its peak, will fall. Like that's the how the world moves, is these big great empires and societies must always have a fall. And so because Superman is stopping really big things from happening in the perspective of this character, he's essentially bringing about an even darker thing that's going to overthrow Camelot, which is just like another way of saying our sort of modern society, which is a really cool theme and something to definitely like think about, because it's, a superhero comes to town, inevitably the villains are going to get crazier, right? Because like they're there. But then what would have happened if not? You can't really know. And then the biggest question is like, okay, well, the reality is he's here and these threats are happening. So what do you expect him to do? Like just actively watch while something is harmed. So that's sort of the big theme around it. But this guy, I hate this sorcerer man. I want to talk about him for a second. First off, I read it backwards. I read part 2 and then part 1. So I was like, who's this guy they keep talking about? And then the first time I actually really see him is like, he's having this like very skeezy bedroom scene. And I was like, immediately no. I hate you. I know what you're about. You have no room to talk, sir. Because those women in the scene look drugged out of their mind. I was like, I'm not about this life. So I was already like skeptical of what he was saying. He made some good points, but not a fan of this character. I can say. And he is a magic character, which is important because I do think this comes up a lot with Clark. Is like some of what he can't defeat. People are always like, he's very overpowered. Like, what's the threat? And the reality is, like, if you're a good writer, there are lots of threats you could pose to this character. But one of the most common ones we see throughout his runs is like magic is something he has a little bit of a harder time understanding and therefore responding to. So that is important to note for sure about this character. Like you said, he's a sorcerer. And so that's like, I think that's a big theme that comes up in Superman stories a lot.
He does visit Zatanna after a fashion after he initially finds out about the threat that he is supposedly bringing to society. But there's also sort of an almost doomsday-like creature that he has to fight, Subject 17, who was not only does he, speaking of ex-girlfriends, not only does he deal with Lana Lang, but he's also dealing with an arcanobiologist, Dr. Carolyn Llewellyn, who used to date Clark back before he went on his kind of journeying around before he landed in Metropolis. And she discovers this creature that had been held and experimented on by the Soviets in Kazakhstan, and he's quite strong and from another race. So he has various punch outs with him until Orion shows up and makes him disappear, and then shows Superman the future, which is extremely bleak. Like extremely bleak.
Yeah, and reading this backwards, I can say the ex-girlfriend plot was especially confusing. I was like, who is this woman? Why do we all suddenly know who she is? But that was interesting and of note, I think, because, Superman's just been depowered. He's like now thinking about what his role on this earth is and like questioning if everything he's been doing to help has actually been like long-term hurt. And there's a good little parallel with Subject 17 because Subject 17 also lands, I think, originally in the 40s, right? Like it was in a past, and is subjected to a lot of experiments and harm, and so had a totally different upbringing, if you will, being an alien refugee than Clark. So I think I did really like that side story as like a parallel, right? Like this is what it could have been for me, but it was real confusing reading it backwards. I can tell you that.
And then did you read it frontwards?
Yeah, so I read 2 and I was like, wait, what? Well, first off, I was doing a lot of mental leaps. I was like, okay, yeah. But listen, when you read comics, right? Anyone in the chat knows you read comics. If you're not reading like from the start to the end, right? Like you're not going back and digging through decades and decades. You got to do a little like nodding every once in a while. Like, yeah, that happened.
Like, that happened. Yeah.
So I was just doing that. But then when it ended, I was like, this is such a weird place to end to keep going, right? And so I went back and read 1 and then I read 2 again. So I read 2, 1, 2, which I don't recommend actually.
Okay, that's right. Our Arion is an Atlantis sorcerer.
Okay. Yes. I think they mentioned that in this run.
Yeah, they did. And so we see a lot of how we see the future that it's that it is. Okay, let me make sure I say his name right. That there's somebody that's oh yeah, there's Lois in that haircut. Yikes.
You're talking about the Iranian hero, Sirocco?
Sirocco's shows up, but I meant the this guy that is on the cover.
Oh, yeah. What is
Hassan-e Sabah, the old man of the mountain, as the assassin lord master of the Hashin. Kyber. Okay,
Kyber,
we'll call him Kyber.
Yeah. Yeah, because the darkness that's being brought about that we mentioned before is sort of like theoretically manifested in this character, who has already fought a Superman-like stand-in, which is like an Iranian hero, Sirocco. That was cool. Reading it backwards, that's what made sense at the beginning. I was like, oh, we're starting with this guy and gonna learn his story. No.
Yeah, there's Sirocco. I used to have a VW Sirocco in college.
Oh, okay.
It was cool.
And he's claimed he's defeated Kyber, but by a different name before, and is adamant that he's also like kind of fate will dictate what's going to happen.
And that he's linked to him somehow. Part of Kyber was placed within me centuries ago. It ties me to him, sustains my life. It is my curse. I hold his human failings, his emotions, his conscience, his guilt. So Kyber needs to be the one to kill. I'm sorry. Sirocco needs to be the one to kill Kyber. I will say that Kyber has some really cool lettering for the way he speaks.
Yeah.
I like that kind of stuff. So it is an extremely bleak, dark future that Superman is causing by not letting civilization fail in its own on its own. He's making the future worse.
Yeah. And so there's like a million plots in this book. There's like the Sirocco plot.
There's a previously that's like plot. This.
Yeah, that would have been great. That would have been great in my reading experience.
Well, it is part 2.
Yeah.
Oh, but you didn't have it. You read it digitally?
Yep.
Okay.
I was just grasping at straws here, and I still am. And then there's also the Lana plot. I think those are the main plots, which is pretty little. She's just going through woes, running. LexCorp, you find out that her and Pete are going through a divorce, and he's still back in Smallville. She has a good heart-to-heart. This was funny, and I wish I had the panel. But when Clark's like, listen, I might be bringing about a greater evil, she gives this really beautiful heart-to-heart speech. Great advice.
Yeah.
And then he's literally like, thanks, bye. Sounds good. I'll think about it. What weird writing choice was made here? It was such an abrupt ending. It's such an abrupt ending.
Oh yeah, okay, it's right here.
Yeah, she's just like giving him all she's got, like Hallmark level, right? Like speech. And then he's like, yeah, I'm gonna think about that. Bye. And then just like literally flies off.
Yeah,
Which was
this is
hilarious.
thanks, Lana. It's food for thought.
It's food for thought.
Zoom.
She was giving. She was like given all the psychology lessons, and he was like,
Yeah.
"All right, peace out. I'm gonna think about that."
Why he needs to continue doing what he does.
Yes. So yeah, I think those are the main plots sort of going on. It is a lot, and it's hard to know how I would have felt if I read it in the right order and things were like more slowly introduced to me. But even like rereading one, it was like this is surprisingly meaty in the sense that there's just a ton going on for not like a crazy number of issues. Let's see how many total. I mean, there's like less than 12 issues, I think, but it is like a lot going on.
Including
for sure
this moment.
They have a cute date night with Jess's favorite haircut.
Look at that. It's like flat on her head. What the hell? I mean, even my hair has some body.
Wow.
I've never wanted my hair greased down on my head. Okay, yeah, it's enough. So
do you have one more? Do you want to just get it out? You know, like, this is a safe place.
So Superman responds because he had saved somebody the other day, and Arion has come back and said, "Have you made up your mind about what you're going to do?" He gave him 2 weeks to think about it, and in the meantime, he saved somebody who fell off like an apartment, a high-rise apartment porch or a banister.
Yeah, I think it's a kid, right? A kid
Yeah.
calls out. And that's sort of like his micro moment where he's like, well, you know, he's like, obviously, if someone's calling out, I can't just stand there. And so this is like a small example of the big, you know, problem being posed here. It's like, I can't control like fate, but I do know I'm here and I do know terrible things are happening that are threatening people and I can't just not do anything. Which is a bit of a simplified ending, but you know, it's fine. It's cute. I'll take it.
Yeah. Now wait a sec. There was I wanted to talk about one very 2000s moment of where's the other of Zatanna, and this was.
Are you going to come for someone's hair again?
No, I'm going for a different part of the body.
Oh God. Okay.
I think it was just
gonna sip my coffee.
It was so exaggerated as to be insulting, I think. Oh wait, maybe Zatanna shows up. He does consult her early on, but maybe she shows up more in like the final fight.
Yeah, she's in both arcs, I believe.
Right. And I'm just trying to. Oh yeah, the Phantom Stranger's in this. I enjoyed this whole thing, especially because you're right. It was like you say, it was meaty. There was just a ton going on. Okay, come on, that is just, you can dial it down a notch. I get Zatanna's sexy, but we don't.
But now you're giving it more airtime now, though. So
people are supposed to be reading this anyway, so they're gonna find out.
Okay.
Hair and over exaggerated boobs, I think, are just ridiculous. Stick to the head hair only, please. Too late. I already went there. Zatanna is just way over endowed, and
she's a character that gets it a lot, I think. I mean, like all female characters really do.
Yeah, I get the fishnet stockings and everything else, fine, but I don't know. That's
impractical. Can't be fighting crime like that.
Yeah. So Subject 17 appears in this also, and as well as Orion and wait, is this okay? This is the first. Wait, no. Yeah, this is the second one. So Orion tries to take Superman down himself because he's going to cause uh, an end to the world.
So he says, but again, I don't trust this man and his
Not at
drugged
all.
out companions. It's going to be a no for me.
Yeah, I do like the giant pie in the face because I am a big fan of pie
Yeah, that was
fights.
funny.
That's the prankster. So Phantom Stranger's in this and helps him out, and Zatanna's in this, helps him out. Lana is able to help start to save LexCorp through her use of these. At the time, they're like little drones. These little drone thingies that have video in them and are able to videotape and send back to the world all these fights that Superman has with Arion.
I love that you say his name slightly different each
I
time.
don't know how to say it.
Just keep it fresh.
How would you say it?
I wouldn't even try.
Well, try now.
It's kind of a combination between Arian and Orion. So yeah, I
Right.
would be like, yeah, I think it's Arion. It can't be Orion. But I
Right.
want it to be. Arion just sounds, but I mean, he's terrible, so who knows?
Right. Boob time. I love pie fights. Three Stooges pie fights is what I like watching the most. Any pie fight is a good pie fight. And I've been in one pie fight in my fraternity, one of my sophomore year, before the girl broke my heart my sophomore year.
Oh, Hawaii girl was a college girl?
Yeah, she was a senior and I was a sophomore.
That is a different kind of heartbreak. I'm feeling for you a little more than I was, 30 minutes ago. 30 minutes ago, I was like, maybe she made good points. We don't know.
No, in today's terms, she ghosted me. She was in the sorority behind me, and I saw her all the time, and she was just like not even speaking to me. I'm like, what? How? We were just together, and now you're not even speaking to me? Oh, she was graduating, had to do things. I'm like, what the hell? But before that, I walked into dinner. This was way before that. I walked into dinner at my fraternity, and for dessert, there was this huge tray of these small little custard tarts with like berry compote on them. I took one look at them and I said, "Uh-oh." I went right to my room and changed my clothes into these trashy clothes. And I hadn't said anything, but by the time I had gotten back, those things were already flying through the air at each other.
Was it like hazing or it was just for fun?
No, it was. We were all in the fraternity. We didn't have any pledges, so there was no hazing.
Okay.
Everybody just decided it would be funny and fun to have a pie fight. Don't worry who's going to clean up afterwards, but there was just this massive little custard pie fight with the blueberry compote on it. And it was awesome. And those things I made sure I grabbed one to eat because they were great. But yeah, it was a massive pie fight. So there's the answer, Chris. I have been in one pie fight. I forgot to say there was whipped cream on top of them too, which was the tip off that they were going to be used for a pie fight. No question.
Yeah, only whipped cream. I've definitely done stuff like that, but I feel like a fruit compote is like next level. That stains. That's a stain right there.
Oh, that's why I changed my clothes.
Yeah.
And then cleaning up afterwards was really a nightmare. So
I can imagine.
Yeah. But I think it was just another, it was a shame, but it was just my sophomore year was just so crazy being in that fraternity for my first year. My grades were actually better that year than of all my years in college somehow. But everything was just a game at that point to everybody. There were no real consequences to anybody's actions. So there was just a pie fight. And I don't even remember how we cleaned up, but I think somebody brought out a bunch of bottles of booze and we just got drunk and cleaned everything up. And we probably started mud wrestling. I don't know what it was.
Gosh.
I don't know. There was no mud wrestling. I just made
Oh,
that up.
boys. Okay.
So Phantom Stranger shows up and shows Superman the very where
Bleak.
very bleak, centuries in the future. And he does question Phantom Stranger as to if that is the future. And Phantom Stranger says it is a possibility of futures.
Yeah.
But the darkness was gathering, and Superman was holding the darkness back from eventually. He was making it worse.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of like if you put something off, it becomes bigger in your head, and maybe also the consequences of what you're putting off become greater and greater. I think that's like the theory behind it, right? Like, the longer you're not letting Camelot fall, or the longer you're not letting, something bad happen, you're creating an even worse thing to face down the line, is the theory behind it.
yeah, no, James, I made that up. It wasn't a thing, so don't worry. I'm like Camelot Falls a lot because a big Superman complaint is he's so strong, nothing can stop him. This story is one where he has to stop fighting, at least so far, LOL. And the reason he wants to keep going, I think, helps set up why we like Superman so much, is that is for that hope that he can make things better.
Yeah, I think like it kind of reminds me, actually, even though the other one was so flimsy, the back in action arc. It is similar for me in this way, that like for me, I think the lesson at the end, or the moral at the end, or the theme at the end is like what saves it. But I think in my opinion, this story is kind of a little bit messy. I think actually if it had more issues, um, like maybe was like a 20 issue thing, or even longer, honestly, and let some of these things breathe and really like settle, I would have been more satisfied. But it felt like a little bit of like spaghetti thrown at the wall, and then they're like, look at this little bow we tied at the end. And so when you got to the end, for me, because it felt rushed and because it felt like a lot, it felt a little cheap. But I think the actual theme was like good, and definitely resonates. But how we got there, I think, was just like too much too fast, I guess, and didn't really. It was like, yeah, that happened. You know what I mean? And not like me feeling feelings along the way, which is kind of what
Yeah,
I would have wanted for such an
yeah,
epic arc. Because, when we looked at this run, I was like, oh, this must be a tent pole, right? It's like one of the only parts that's like physically collected in like a
right.
nice format.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems, like a tent pole. But in reality, it's probably my third favorite of the like arcs. It definitely isn't at the top. So yeah, I think it had a good ending. I would still rate it similar, actually, to the one before, like a 3.25 from me out of 5, like a little better than fine, because of that theme at the end, but not one that I would like tell people to go out and read right away. What about
I
for
think,
you?
yeah, I think I'm with you pretty much word for word with what you said about how it could have been given more issues to breathe,
Yeah.
and not be so condensed into uh, uh, one story. And yeah, I think you expressed that really well. Um, and I'd give it a 3.5 out of
Mm,
5.
yeah, I think that makes sense. Um,
Yeah, we had a lot of water balloon fights too. We didn't have any super soakers, but we did have water balloon fights. Um,
college.
yeah,
Those are the days. Anything goes.
absolutely. Okay, so in between Camelot Falls
Yes,
or
the
were the
4
solo
solo
stories
stories.
that I didn't get to read, except for 660, 666, and 712. So there's two Omni 660 and 661 that I did not get to read.
So one of them was, I didn't write down which issue was which, because that would be smart of me and I wasn't thinking. One of them was The Art of the Prank. It was a prankster issue.
Okay.
Um, and I really liked the art in this one. Apparently, I wrote Mike Manley and Brett Blevins art. I think that's what I wrote, but it's chicken scratch, so who knows? Was that one of the ones that you read? We won't go into detail
No,
about these because
no,
they were.
I read 666, which was the Beast one, and then Superman 712 was the Crypto one.
This is I don't have very good because I read them digitally, but this is the cover of the Prankster one, which is
Okay.
kind of cool. I really liked that one, and I think that was the one too that used art from previous issues, like throughout as a storytelling
Oh, okay.
mechanic. Like vintage art. And then the other. That's all I wrote on that. So I told you these would be riveting. Then Wonders of Antiquity, which was the Wonder Woman one, where they're at a gala, a fundraiser for this charity, and it's like Clark and Lois are going like as a date, obviously, and they are hanging out with Diana, and they're facing this villain that has like a backstory, Kylera, who's like an old school sort of villain for Wonder Woman, and then is in this present day storyline. That one was okay. That wasn't one that you read. I can tell by your face, right?
Yeah, no.
And then Beast from Krypton, which was like the Halloween. That was Walt Simonson. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's in, I think, this one. Yeah.
And that one's basically like it's a classic like dream, like it's happening in someone's dream, so you can make it do whatever you want. And in the dream,
Yeah.
significantly, like Lois is pregnant, which is like a recurring theme pre Jonathan Kent, right? Like this idea of if we had a kid. So that one was okay.
Because at the end of Last Son, the computerization of Jor-El says that Kryptonians and humans cannot mate. So obviously that's what's on their minds throughout this.
Yeah, and we should say the theme, as we teased earlier, of the third Kryptonian, that part of the arc has not resolved yet. Like within Camelot Falls, we don't get a resolution to that.
Right.
And this soon. So that's partly why it's coming back up again.
This is the 666 issue, and Superman is called out by many of the heroes, and feels like it's a dream. But wait, didn't he? Okay, he saw Phantom Stranger. Now I'm forgetting. Let me just see here.
It's a bit messy. There's a lot that's going on in that issue.
Oh yeah. Okay. I did just read this last night. Okay, that's right. I thought it was Zatanna that helped him out. It was Phantom Stranger. He has a meeting with Phantom Stranger like early on, and then deals with what does he deal with? Like,
why are you asking me? I read this like almost a month ago.
Oh, I read it last night ago.
I read you all my notes. He dreams Lois is pregnant.
Okay.
Halloween, Walt Simonson.
He kind of splits into two.
Yeah.
Where he does whatever he wants. He's sort of like a Homelander type character or Plutonian. And he actually goes to hell.
He does, yeah.
Because he's been infected with a little demon. Welcome, man of Krypton. Oh, he wants to go take on. He's been infected with a little demon that had escaped hell. So he has to go to hell to get rid of him. It's kind of a throwaway story, really, to me. I was like, okay.
Yeah, they basically saw that issue 666 was about to fall in October, and they were like, we need like a hell issue. And they're like, in what world is Superman going to hell? They're like, in his dreams. And so just like actual dreams, none of it really makes sense. It's kind of like a bit bloated, but some people really like those. I mean, I do too. DC has done a lot of like Halloween, Christmas, Hanukkah. I really like those, but this one is a bit messy. Like, if you're gonna do that, you only have an issue, just keep it simple. You could still do this like spooky 666 thing, but it's a bit much. Yeah.
Yeah, it was okay.
And then your favorite solo story that you alluded to, I think earlier.
Oh,
It's the Crypto the
712.
Superdog. Yeah.
Yeah. That um
Some good art in there. Some nice little pages I would want as like a little poster.
yeah, I should have brought my iPad down with me. That it's very poignant. It's Superboy. It was an issue uh that Busiek did after right after Infinite Crisis, or during Infinite Crisis. And then they chose to put it right into 712, and it's sort of out of continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Crypto's lonely. Connor Kent has been killed. Superboy Prime is dead, who had hurt Crypto, and Superman is nowhere to be found. And so Crypto goes all over the world trying to find Superman. I'm getting choked up just talking about it because I'm such a dog lover. And the fact that Crypto wants to find somebody to play with and be with, and he just can't find them. And it's very poignant and very heart rending, I think.
Yeah, and it's told like from his perspective as he would understand things, which I think is what makes it so powerful. I was looking, did I take any pictures? Not any good ones. Only when they're playing fetch, they're doing so with a hubcap, which I thought was cute. It's got this Smallville
I think it's a manhole cover.
Manhole cover. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Manhole cover from Smallville, which I think is really cute. But yeah, that's a cute little one. I think definitely to read on its own. It's definitely the standout. The rest of these solo ones, I really liked the prankster one. I'd give it like a 4 because I just had a great time with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the Wonders of Antiquity is like a 3. The Beast one for me is maybe even like a 2.5. It's not. I don't think it's very good. But the Crypto one, I agree, is like close to 5 stars for me. I really, really enjoyed it.
Good. I'm still bitter that my iPad won't download those issues.
I think you'll like Wonders of Antiquity because it is like it's an interesting story. You know, it's nothing like crazy great, but I think it's interesting, and I really like when Lois and Diana interact, and it has a bit of that. So I think you might like that one.
Okay, good. And I wasn't able to get Superman Family or Superman 321.
Oh, that's upsetting. Well, I'll just quickly say Superman Family is like a what do they call them? It's Action Comics 850. So it's like a big milestone comic, and really it's just you might like it because it has the Legion, and I know you really like the Legion. So the Legion are sort of like watching old school Superman videos with Kara. And essentially, that's the one that uses actually the old comic panels I was talking about. So when they're viewing it in this like futuristic viewfinder, it's like throughout history issues of Action Comics, which is very,
cool.
It's cute. It's cool. But that's again where we get the tease of the third Kryptonian, because something happens where Kara that didn't really happen. She was like, oh, what's that? And then there's again this sort of like tease. That's really it. It's mostly I guess if it was a TV show, it would be a bottle episode, like using a bunch of, or a clips episode. It would use a bunch of old clips.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it has like an overarching arc, but I think it's just sort of like, an anniversary issue, and then one where we're teeing up the family. I don't think I rated that one on its own, but I think it's like a 4. Like it's pretty good.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, I think you would like it because I know you really like the Legion. Superman 321. Wow. All of this is, and I did take one photo. All of this is it's a collection of Jimmy stories, which in theory sounds good. And they're amusing, like if you like Jimmy, which I do. But it's totally a mess. Like there's no real through line. And also it's consistently confusing how old Jimmy is. So in this picture, I don't know if you can see that. This looks like Jimmy is 5, but he's supposed to be like current Jimmy.
That's awesome.
So that's like a 2.75, not even quite a 3. So yeah, just rushing through. Those are not like it's not super important that you miss them, but I would go back and read Superman Family, Jess, because I just think you would enjoy it.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go up and try and get that after this.
But then I think what is my second favorite arc, and one of the bigger ones, is the third Kryptonian, which I think you did get to read, right?
Yeah. I really enjoyed this.
So finally all the teases are like coming together. And it's very like proto Super Sons. I really like reading this era because you can tell they were ready to do what they eventually did in Super Sense. You know what I mean? There's so much that comes before that to sort of foreshadow where they were testing the
Yeah,
pattern.
Tim Drake is like Chris's soulmate here practically. They immediately
Yeah.
bond and they immediately have fun. And this is where he gets the I think where he gets the red watch. Yeah, the red kryptonite watch to depower Chris so he can fit into society better.
Yep. Yeah.
And they go to the Batcave and he says, Chris says, Lois, Mama Lois said I wasn't supposed to meet Batman until I was 16. Because
Yeah.
Batman's so scary. Um, and they Batman's trying to help him find. The whole thing is Batman, everybody trying to help Superman find the third Kryptonian on Earth. That the auctioneer alluded to. And so
Yeah.
he sneaks up somehow. Wait, let me remember how Batman's identified a distinctive photosynthesis pattern in the alien molecular compounds we're investigating. They're not hard to
Yeah.
find now that I know what I'm looking for. And so he goes to a farm in Northern California near Ukiah. I know where that is.
Hmm.
I was unaware that it contained super citizens, but okay.
Just the
So he
one. No.
walks up behind the woman, and the woman blazes him. And he says, okay, I suppose I should have been prepared for that. And here we find
Karsa.
Karsa.
Yeah. Whirl, as I say.
Karsa
Whirl.
Worl.
Yeah, Whirl. Yeah, some kids, what Batman was investigating was these kids stole this fabric, and it was like Kryptonian fabric. And they're like, where did they get that from? And that's when they tracked down the origin. It's
Were those
Karsa's
the kids
farm.
from New Genesis?
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They were
Yeah,
they were
this
in
is the same
Camelot
story.
Falls. Light Ray lost a field trip full of New Genesis kids, which was kind of funny.
Yeah.
That all these little superpowered New Genesis kids were trying to play cops and robbers or superhero and supervillains just on the streets of Metropolis. My only issue with this is the third Kryptonian. Okay, the third Kryptonian and the best day. The best day's not as important as the third Kryptonian, but I felt like the art was really janky compared to what we have had before. Considering this is their flagship character, it was not that great, but I thought her character and how she came to exist, I thought this was one of the best stories I read.
Yeah, I really wanted more from this character, and we won't go. I think this one I wouldn't want to spoil too much, just because I think it is a really this is a character. Her backstory is one that I would tell in some fashion if you're trying to learn about Krypton, because she's very much what happens to her is very much like a renegade story. I don't want to spoil if it's okay, like how exactly she is Kryptonian or got there specifically, but she's a renegade.
I think we can say that Krypton early in its infancy was a conqueror and ruler of other planets, an empire building planet where it would subjugate other planets.
Yeah, and not everyone was down for that. And we know Clark gets his powers, like he's able to have more abilities because of our sun, and we know that it's theoretically possible that throughout the universe something like could happen where a Kryptonian could get again powers for some reason. So all this combination is really her story. What's really cool about her too, talk about representation. She's kind of like older. She's like 60-ish years old on Earth, and is like really this badass character with this badass backstory. I could definitely see like a Jamie Lee Curtis getting into a role like this, getting like super swole. Like I could see somebody like that taking on a role like this, and it would be super interesting. So we won't reveal all, but like her backstory is happening, and then is it Amarak or Amalak?
Yeah, That's how I
Amarak,
pronounced it.
Amarak,
Amalak. Amalak.
Amalak is basically hunting Kryptonians. He's hired by Jess's favorite Iron Man knockoff, the Auctioneer, to gather Kryptonians, and so she's kind of like hiding out. So she's the meat of this run really is like her
Oh, I didn't pick
backstory,
up
which
on
is
the fact that he was hired. I thought he was doing that all on his own
no,
because they destroyed his
he hired
planet.
the Auctioneer.
Oh, he hired the
He hired
auctioneer
the
to find
auctioneer.
Kryptonians.
Sorry, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, he hired
got
the
it.
auctioneer. So that's also why you see the auctioneer earlier on, which I will say, like, we'll talk about our overall ratings of this run. But one thing I did appreciate is there are a lot of like callbacks. There is like when you're talking about all the stories like this and all the little pieces that were introduced, there is like a bit of a cohesion there that
Right.
doesn't always exist. I don't think where you're really seeing something that was introduced 30 issues ago come back. Like we don't always see that, I feel like. And I did appreciate that.
Just saying, Chris, we just talked about it. You just missed it. I got all choked up talking about it. And yes, I wiped tears away. So I think that's the sign of a well-written story. If it can move
It
me
was
to
good.
tears.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was heartwarming. You're right. So yeah, Amalak shows up and he's got several Kryptonians that he's ready to wipe out, and including the space pirate, Kara, Crypto, Karsta. No, I meant Kara, Supergirl.
Oh, Kara also, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Karsta, who bolts at the first sign of trouble because she's been running, for the past 40 years of her time. So Power Girl and Supergirl and Crypto, they all show up to try and help because Amalak is extremely powerful, and is able to subdue Superman. Kandor's involved once Amalak finds out about Kandor. So it takes place in the fortress, and what else can we say without spoiling it? Because
not much.
To me,
not much more than that.
To me, besides the first one,
yeah.
I think this was my second favorite besides the first one.
Yeah, me too. Like the first one,
okay.
Yeah. Up and Away is very good. It's like again, I would put it like 4.25, 4.5. This one I would put it like a solid 4. Like it was very good. And again, I really liked this character's story, and I love when we get to see bits of Krypton, and Kryptonian lore, but like in an interesting way. It doesn't always have to be something that is taking place fully in the past. We can see, and that's kind of why I like Kara, because Kara gets to tell a living history of Krypton in a different way than Clark does. And Karsta, I think, was just such a fun character, and I wish there was more of her. And again, I hope that a story like this gets to be told again, because I just think it makes the Kal-El part of Superman much more interesting, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I really liked it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we really can't tell you too much more except that we really loved it. Oh, Power Girl shows up. Oh yeah, Batman's there. It's awesome. Okay, yeah, we'll start. We just sort of power going on. Yeah, we just told you what our first one was. Freddy, you're upside down like a bat, like my Batterdays bat puppet. Also, that's a different. What now?
Okay. I'm not sure.
He's upside down, so maybe the blood's rushing to his head.
Maybe it's like a Bizarro thing, and everything is the reverse.
So yeah, this was so far our second favorite. The first favorite was Up and Away, and then we dealt with. I liked it because it reminded me of when Lana Lang was in the Silver Age, Insect Queen, and she and Pete Ross. I forget who Pete Ross was, but This is why the Silver Age was great for me, because all nutty things could happen. But I read them as like an 8 through 10-year-old, and I was like, whoa, Lana's turned into an insect queen. That's so cool. And Jimmy Olsen was everything from the Wolfman to Elastalad and I don't know, Bizarro, whatever. I forget Jim. I don't think it was Pete Ross. I think Jimmy Olsen was in Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow when Insect Queen and Jimmy's metamorphosis character, what that's Alan Moore's pushing away the Silver Age so they can introduce the kind of Superman they want. I forget if that was the introduction to John Byrne's Man of Steel. If that was what happened, we can look at Super Snob's thing. Let me look at Super Snob's thing really quick. Shadows on your bed. New Krypton. Oh yeah, I want New Krypton collected. Black Ring, Grounded. Oh yeah, that's what Grounded is. What 712 happens in the middle of. They take a break of JMS's Grounded and put that crypto story in there for some odd reason. Wait, what? Flashpoint, Rain, Gloom. I'm going in the wrong way. I should be going backwards. Infinite Crisis, Supergirl, Batman. Beep, 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 beep. Death and Return. Okay, Superman dies. Yeah, blah blah blah. There's the triangle years when they start with Crisis of the Crimson Kryptonite. I remember liking that story, so that'll be fun for us to read together. Man of Steel. Yeah, it's that's what it was setting up, was after Whatever Happened to Man of Tomorrow, Crisis on Infinite Earth. I think it's setting it up for John Byrne's Man of Steel. Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, and we'll get to that.
So you love the Insect Queen. That's the moral.
Well, I do. There's it's almost a Silver Age-ish.
Yeah.
It's like an extended Silver Age plot where an insect race comes to capture Luthor because Luthor had promised them something, and Lana's in charge, so they steal Lana, and the Insect Queen of and Lois's hair is sort of a little bit better in this. She gets a little bit of a makeover, although it's still short and stringy. But the Insect Queen remakes herself in Lana's image. So she's not quite as they capture Lana, take her DNA, remake the Insect Queen to look like Lana, and insects are going to invade and harvest Earth as part of their plot to conquer worlds.
Yes. And meanwhile, back at the farm, aka just back at the apartment, Chris is sick and his powers are out of control, and Lois is dealing with that. So those are kind of the two plots. There is a lot in this. Is just 3 issues, right? Yeah. There's a lot going on in this.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think
go ahead.
Well, like you, I think this is like a silly plot, but it is fun. And there is, again, Busiek just does this apparently. Like, he can do all kind of chaos, and then he ends on a nice note without spoiling it. Like, there's this nice Clark Chris note at the end that really is like resonant. Really unexpectedly so, because it is very wacky. So yeah, I actually hottest of takes. I actually liked this as an overall just a little bit more than all of Camelot Falls. Camelot Falls is like 3.25. This is like a 3.5, kind of like rounded down. Like it's pretty good. It's fun. So yeah, hot take: Insect Queen over Camelot Falls. I don't care What anyone has thought of me up to this point, and I don't care going forward. Yeah, I had fun. I had fun here.
Oh, Booster's really reading along with us. Camelot Falls. Um, let's see. I was in a Superman chat room. That already sets me up for worrying about you, Chris. When the crypto story came out, some people were complaining as it wasn't tied to the JMS run. I was defending it, and Busiek showed up and thanked me. Great fan treatment. Okay, I was worried when we went into a Superman chat room because that is already could be trouble. But Busiek came in and thanked you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's such a great. It's such a great issue. I can't imagine. Do people not like joy, fun, heart warmed? They don't want their hearts warmed. Hold on, were the other people in the chat room Jess's icy ex? Like, what's wrong with these guys?
I think that what the issue was that it was
I get it.
just dropped in the middle of the JMS grounded thing, and I think it had been an issue they were holding on to, and JMS or the artist ran behind, and so they put it in there. That's just that's just a weird thing to be upset about, especially because, as we said, it's such a heartwarming story. I get it that it was plunked in the middle of something, but there was an explanation in the beginning of the issue as to why it was there. And I think the better takeaway is that Chris got thanked by Busiek himself for defending it. Cool. So I think that's awesome. And I'm yeah, I know. Who don't like fun or stories with heart. It was a long time ago, but if I can remember, yes, Jess is correct. It was they needed breathing room because somebody was one of the other artist or writer needed a month to catch up, and so they just dropped it in there. And my friend Nathan Burkholz, who has written all my songs, got that image from the cover. He has bigger forearms than I do. He got that image tattooed on his forearm. He loves it. He's the one that told me about that issue. I have it digitally, but I really need to get it physically because I love it so much. But he got that whole freaking crypto tattooed on his arm from the cover, and it looks really good. I'm not a tattoo guy, but it looks good. I mean, you'd need bigger forearms than I have. You'd need bigger forearms than I have, like Nate's, to get the whole crypto thing on there. Just a sec. Upper management is. Let me tell her that I'm on the air. Where are you? On the air. Okay.
So Insect Queen.
Insect Queen.
It? I already outed myself with my hot take.
Oh yeah. Well, you liked it better than Camelot Falls. That's right.
As an overall,
was a good hot take. Oh, I forgot. Insect Queen also had a second part where he was dealing with Paragon. Did Busiek write this? Yeah, he did. He wrote did you read the issue right after Insect Queen with Paragon?
I don't think so.
This dude?
Doesn't look familiar. Nope.
Yeah, okay. This was called Shadows Linger Parts 1 and 2. It was a story about he's dealing with Paragon, who somehow can absorb Superman's powers and fight him. But it's a Mon-El story. The Phantom Zone guy that's in there from lead poisoning.
No, I remember. I will never forget Monel. I know Monel. Maybe I did read that because Monel wasn't an issue. It's not in my notes, but it's possible that I did read it.
The elders of Monel's planet come to execute Superman because he is because Monel was considered a heretic, and the religious fanatic rulers of Monel's planet, what, Daxam or something.
Daxam. Yeah, no, I didn't read this. You just showed that page, and that doesn't look familiar at all.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
How'd
they
you like
show
that
up.
one?
They show up to try and take him apart. Luther. Superman is trying to solve Monel's lead poisoning, and they release this crazy galactic golem on him. This was more of the monsters of the day fighting type thing. They're like every single day in this run, Superman fought like 4 different monsters. Or I understand Action Comics and it's Superman, but I told you Friday night that I had read so much Superman fighting monsters, I felt like I was from Krypton myself. I had just gotten so zapped up that there was just so much fighting. It was very interesting how Superman got rid of the Golem and how he dealt with Paragon. But after the promise of up and away of like things being normal for half the paperback, there was just so much fighting of everything. Everything was just amped up a level of fighting, and this is where I understand superhero fatigue, I think.
Yeah.
Because even I got fatigued. This was the last thing I read. And even I was at the end of this going, what is happening here with me? Why am I reading these superhero comics where all he does is fight all these wacky, crazy aliens? And I've been doing that my entire life, where Superman just fights and I keep going back for more.
It got very esoteric at the end.
I've still got PTSD and still I want more.
You wanted to talk about overall feelings on the run, and I think that is one of the themes that is a bit frustrating. Is just it is almost all action nonstop. I think for me, it's not a bright side of that is there are some really like wacky, like the prankster, toy man, that puzzle lady that I'll never forget her head in the trash can. Like that's just fun. And for me, I ended on Insect Queen, so I was like, oh, that was kind of fun, So it doesn't save it because I like a better balance in my stories, but that is something like of note, I guess, is at least there were some fun, like more whimsical villains. And I did really appreciate that. And as I said, I did like all the callbacks. I do think there was like a through line. I think it would have stood out more if there was a bit of a balance with the monster of the week stuff. So like in the end, if I were to zoom back from this run, I'd probably give it like overall like a 3.5, like a 3.5, like which is what 7 out of 10. So like a 70%. It passes. I think it's fine. It's worth visiting. There are high points, and I do think the third Kryptonian and Up and Away can both be read on their own. You don't need to read what's in the middle. So if you're interested in this run but not like sold on reading 40-ish issues, those are the two that stand out for me. So those are kind of like my overall, I guess, impressions. But I'm really glad we read it for sure. Camelot Falls, I've been like itching. Like, what is this about? Because I had not read it. And you know what? I'm good. What about you?
I agree with that. I would throw in Superman 712.
Oh, yes.
As something that you should read.
Yeah.
And you have to go here soon for your NCAA party.
Yep.
That's fine and fun. Jess, you do know that this show is the modern version of a 2010 comic book chat room, so I guess you should be worried. there's no judgment in here, though. I'm not. I mean, all opinions are valid in here as long as they're respectful and no hate, which I think is different than a chat room. But yeah, okay, that's fair.
And
Yes.
I have terrible memory, so I definitely won't be a snob about someone not remembering XYZ issue number because I didn't know it to begin with. I just
Oh,
sit
and
down and read what's put in front of me.
I have everybody knows I have a terrible memory too. So, I think I'm probably with you on a 7 out of 10, a 3.5. It's fun that I read it because it does have some very human type tender
Mhm.
moments.
It does.
Um, and it's got a lot of them sprinkled in there. It takes a lot to get to him. You know, there's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of interesting creatures that he fights, but again, it's still fighting, and
Yeah.
that's what superhero comics are. And so I can't really criticize it. That this is what I signed up for. It just seemed like a lot. Like
Yeah.
there were it was just monster to monster to villain to monster, Lex Luthor constantly there was, and so I didn't feel like it could take a breath and just there needed to be, I think, a little more ground on the ground moments with Lois and Chris, and I which is probably why 712 is such a nice breather right in the
Mhm.
middle of everything. Um, is that it's such a tender, interesting, touching story, with Crypto remembering his memories, mostly of
Mhm.
Connor. Um, and yeah, but that's what superhero comics are. But I feel, and so maybe this is what I enjoyed back then in 2006, whenever these were coming out and I was
Mhm.
collecting them. Um, but now I feel like my superhero comics, I want a little less punching and a little more figuring it out
Yeah.
intellectually, maybe.
Yeah, and like you said, there are moments sprinkled, so it's almost like he tried to do too much. Like you don't
Mm,
the because I think there's some cheesy dialogue for sure, but there are so many good little moments that if you just stretch those out and kicked out a few fights, like you'd really elevate this quite a bit because I do think like what really shines here for me for sure, even in Camelot Falls, is the thematic work. Like even in Camelot Falls, which I think is bloated, kind of messy, very skippable, the theme of it, the idea of it, is actually really good. And so there's just it's kind of like sometimes you don't enjoy something, and then there's times when you are, like, kinda mid on it, but you see where it could have been so much better, like, every corner you turn, you're like, "Oh, this could have been better. This could have been better," which is more frustrating, I think, than it just being mid with no potential. Like, I think there's so much potential that was left on the table, and that
mm.
is kinda like a bit of a bummer, but again, like, the 3rd Kryptonian came towards the end of the run, Up and Away started it, so I feel good because I feel like these 2 sort of tent poles at or I guess they're not tent poles, but the start and the finish, I think are fairly good, and so overall, like, I'm walking away still really, like, positive that we read it, even if I have
Yeah.
critiques, yeah.
At first, I thought Mary was saying I should read the book
Oh,
Hawkeyes,
it's a
and
great book.
then as far as superhero books, and then I realized we were talking about the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Yes.
Who are you cheering for, Jessica?
Yeah, I wanna see Caitlin Clark have her storybook moment. Why? I love inspirational sports movies, and she is a walking inspirational sports movie to be made in, like, 10 years. It's gonna win an Oscar. I'm gonna watch. Despite living in Kentucky, basketball is not one of my favorites to watch, but I do love following a good story, so, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, Kelly's coming over tonight, and we're gonna watch the end of that game. 'Cause, I don't really care for basketball, as you know, same. And Kelly really loves who's the coach of South Carolina?
Oh, yeah, I can't remember her name,
Don
but she had a
Staley.
great interview earlier.
Don
Yeah,
Staley, yeah. And
yeah,
Kelly loves her, but and I said I'd be rooting for Caitlin, and she said either way, everything's fine. It's not it's not like I mean, I definitely want Caitlin Clark to score like 65 points and walk away with a trophy.
yeah.
I don't know. She's inspirational. Yeah, it's really fun to watch her play, and I don't care for men's basketball, let alone women's basketball, and to be such a magnet for I I, sh- I I think that they've set records on viewership in the games she's involved in. People
Yeah.
really dig her, and so I'm all about her. I think I'm huge. I love her.
Yeah.
Dawn Staley from my neck of the woods. Huge respect for Dawn Staley as a lifelong Iowa fan. It's been a pleasure watching her, and it's sad it's her last. Wait, Huskies.
Last. Oh, I'm sorry.
What are you doing
Well,
in here?
yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, glad that we read this. I think probably we did make a list of some like kind of standalone stories. So I think maybe next go around we'll maybe do some standalones. And
Oh, is
then
that what the other half of this one document is?
yeah, that side's all like standalones. And then maybe
Oh,
a run after that. Cause I did really enjoy the run, but I had to like really set myself up. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
to read it. But yeah, I think we could pick a standalone or two for next time as like a palate
sure.
cleanser and then tackle another run. So if people do have run ideas that they want us to do, put them in the comments. Would love to. I
Yeah,
think we could do one after a short break. So yeah,
sure. That'd be great. Well, thank you for joining, and thank you to the chat for chatting. And this is a good. I appreciate this comment. The positivity and respectful exchange of ideas, the best part of this community. Thanks, everyone.
yeah, for sure,
Nice. That's a good one to end on.
absolutely. Yeah, and
Oh,
we'll see
Doc
you.
is saying Superman War World, a modern one. I
Oh
haven't
yeah,
read that.
I haven't read it either.
Okay.
It's a possibility.
I'm gonna go up and try and get my iPad to work. For some reason, it's just blocking me. Oh, yeah, that's right. Omnidog's fault. My Discord is a lot of fun. Thank you to the fans for watching. Thank you to Jessica for being Earth One Jess and being my partner in crime here.
Yeah,
And
thanks for having me.
thanks for you really give a lot of good, insightful thoughts, and I'm really pleased with that. That you're so you attack it from a different perspective than I do, and I always appreciate a different viewpoint.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, so I will play us out with my theme, and everybody go watch Caitlin Clark and root for whoever the hell you want to.
Whoever you want.
Yeah, it's all good as long as you root for us, Jess and Jess, right? Yeah,
Right,
peace.
right. Yeah.
Us.